So today I wanted to talk to you guys about the MPD18. I've been looking for YouTube videos, good YouTube videos since I bought this unit, that kind of explained what the capabilities of the MPD18 are, and I couldn't find any. So I decided, let me just learn by reading through the manual, which is not as fun as it sounds, and let me make my own video for the guys that are just trying to get into an MPD18 to improve their beat making or composition or whatever the case. I figured this would be able to help a lot of you guys out there. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to point out to y'all is, I guess, the main part of the MPD18, which is, of course, the pads. In future videos, I'm going to talk about how you can make them work with different DAWs, probably starting with FL Studio since that's what I'm native to. It has a couple of cool plugins like FPC that you can link drum sounds to, or SliceX, a plugin that allows you to chop up vocals or maybe older songs to remix them. Right now, I'm not going to get into it, but I have each pad linked up to a drum sound in FPC and FL Studio. So, as I play the sound on the pad, it actually coordinates with the sound that I have linked to it in FL Studio and plays that noise, or plays that sound, which is actually pretty cool. The first option I want to get into is this option called Note Repeat. You might see it on the bottom. It's pretty sweet. If you click on it and turn it on, what it actually does is it allows you to play notes that are auto-quantized for you. They're set to repeat. So if I play pad 2, for instance, which I think is a bass drum, all I have to do is hold it down and it starts to play that sequence, that pattern for that particular drum. That's all I'm going to get into for now. You can actually program how the notes sound in the note repeat, but we'll get into that in just a second. The next thing I want to cover with you guys is this slider right here. Now, this slider doesn't necessarily do anything on its own, but it's controllable, which means that you can link it to a control in your DAW and have it do whatever you want. Most of the time when I utilize it, it's just as a master volume fader. And I'll show you all how to do that in FL Studio in the next video. The button right above the slider is actually your bank selection. So you have 3 banks to choose from, which means that starting from your first bank, you have preset sounds. If you get into your second bank, the sounds might be a little different, and even in your third bank. This is awesome because it actually means that you get 48 pads at your disposal split up between 3 banks. So if you have a pretty extensive project or something like a live project that you want to do, this gives you a lot of flexibility to do so. Above that, to the left, we have a button called presets. Now, presets is real interesting, and you use it with the editor that comes with the MPD18. Akai includes a piece of software that allows you to edit the parameters of the pads. This is cool if you want to set the notes to be lower or higher, if you have them selected, or if you have them set to specific drums outside of FPC or outside of something similar to FPC. And you can also set things up like aftertouch, or whether it has velocity sensitivity or not. So I think that's something that's pretty cool. If you have presets that you've already created and you set them to a certain channel, you can select that channel by pressing the preset button and then the pad number. So you can have up to 16 pad presets all together that each correlate to a different set of programming, which is pretty cool. The same thing goes for the MIDI channel. If you have certain MIDI channels that you want to do specific things within your DAW, you can select that MIDI channel by holding down the MIDI channel button and then selecting the pad number that you want. Above each pad on the left-hand side, if you can see it here, you'll see that it has numbers right above it. Well, that actually tells you what channel that you would be choosing when you get into it. Above the preset button, we have a button called full level. That allows you to decide whether you want the pads to be velocity and touch sensitive or not. So I just turned it off, and if you listen, let's see. There we go. Everything that I do, or how hard I press each pad is actually it actually dictates the velocity of the note itself. So the harder I press the pad here, the louder the sound is. The softer I press the pad, the softer the sound is. If I have full level on, it doesn't matter how hard I press the pad or how soft I press the pad. It's going to make the same amount of noise. It's going to produce the same velocity into the MIDI channels, into the program, whatever DAW you're using. The last button I want to cover is this NR config button to the right of full level. Now that actually allows you to mess with the parameters for the note repeat that I was talking about earlier. So I have note repeat set on. I haven't messed with any of the parameters for the note repeat. So let's just listen to what it sounds like natively. Like that. Really fast, really abrupt. However, if I wanted to maybe slow it down, you can actually set the quantization pattern for each note. Again, if you look on the right side of each pad, you'll notice that there might be notes here and times. And that's actually the quantization pattern that you can choose. So to choose a quantization pattern, if you go to NR config and then whatever pattern you deem fit, I chose 1/8 for this one, and press it again, you'll notice that it's probably going to be a little slower than what we had before. A couple of other things that you can do is set the swing, which is essentially how close together the notes are. And it kind of dirties up the quantization a little bit, which can produce some really cool sounds. So the swing percentages start on pad 10 and go all the way up to pad 15. So let's see what a lot of swing sounds like on this particular quantization pattern. If I think that's too much, I can go down to pad 10, reduce the quantization or reduce the amount of swing, or I can turn it off completely with pad number 9. One of the things that you can also do is set the tempo. So if you notice, there's a blinking light above the Enter Config button. That's actually the tempo that's programmed for the MDP18 or MPD18. So if I press it and press on pad number 16 a couple of times, I can actually set the tempo to be a little slower. So I'm going to add some swing, set the tempo to be a little lower. Let's see what the note repeat sounds like now. You can play around with the different parameters that will produce different sounds for you depending on what type of sound that you're going for. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool feature if you're just trying to add quick drums to a project that you don't want to spend a lot of time on, or if you're just trying to lay the foundation to lay other rhythm parts over it or other melody parts over it. That covers it for right now. That's just the external specs of the MPD18. As I said before, in the next videos, I'm going to be trying to get into a little more of the software side of it, how you can use it to control FL Studio, FPC, and if we have time, maybe how to chop up vocals in SliceX. Until next time, guys.